Hi, welcome to our special live reveal of Genesis 4.0. My name is Bethany Maddox. Zane Scott and I will be presenting today's webinar. As I'm sure you noticed, our applications engineer, Sarah Sumner, was originally scheduled to present today. However, due to a personal emergency, we are so thankful to have Zane step in, and we're sure you'll be pleased with what he has to show you today. We're excited to show you an overview of the new features releasing in our latest version of Genesis today. Our Genesis product line was first released in 2011, built as a next-generation approach to the capabilities originally presented in Core. Teams looking for enhanced connectivity and a modern interface have been able to capitalize on the benefits of Genesis. And now, with today's release, even more teams will find benefits in the enhanced capability and connectivity of the software. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items. We will be answering questions today at the end of the webinar. Please send your questions in as soon as you think of them through the question tab on the webinar control panel, and we will answer them during our Q&A period after the main presentation. The webinar is being recorded today. If you experience connection problems during the live presentation, you might want to watch the recording, which will be available on our website webinar archive within 1 to 2 days. I will send the link to that to you now in the chat window. Now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Zane. Welcome, Zane, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Bethany, and I'm glad to be with you this afternoon, and I hope that you'll be as excited as we are by the time we finish. As Bethany said, we are releasing Genesis 4.0 today, and you might ask yourself, why Genesis 4.0? Why a new edition of Genesis, and why Genesis in the first place? And there's a really simple answer to that, but unfortunately or fortunately, I'm not going to stop with that simple answer, but I'm going to begin with it and end with it. And that simple answer is because we, as practicing systems engineers, are seeking to do all that we can do to enable your teams to get to better designs through the integrated insight of our tools and methods. We are practicing systems engineers through our services and our work with customers, and get a look at what customers need, and we see what we need ourselves, and we hope that you will see that Genesis 4.0 is a great step forward with that. So let's look at the new Genesis and talk about some of what's there for you. Why Genesis 4.0? Well, any solution that we would put forward has to provide us with a big picture. Systems engineers are responsible for knitting the whole design together. That means we bring together many perspectives and we provide insights for everyone, no matter whether they're the design team, whether they're engineers who come from different disciplines that participate in the design, whether they are the folks who make up the greater enterprise that sponsors and moves forward the design, or their customers and stakeholders. They all need insights into the design, and not just a static insight from any one point, but an insight that advances with the design. And so that's what we're seeking to provide here. So we need to be free to engineer our designs, and therefore our tools should help us to avoid inconsistencies and to be complete in our approach and in our design, help us to avoid errors and leverage our processes, and ultimately give us the insight into our design that enables us to achieve design excellence. And we're very excited that Genesis 4.0 does all of those things. Collaboration is a key word in any design, as I'm sure anybody out there who's listening who participates in systems engineering design knows well. We don't design our systems alone. We collaborate with project managers, with ultimate users of the system, with domain specialists, collaborate with other systems engineers, with engineers and other engineering specialties. And therefore, in order to collaborate, we need to present information in a way that resonates with every person that has a stake in our product. We interface with all of those folks, and we need to work across those interfaces with information that allows them to fully collaborate and to bring to the table all that they have. Our tools need to provide us with an integrated solution. Systems engineering is all about taking the systems view, with working with everything that has to do with the design in an integrated way. So if we divide our data, or divide the life cycle stages, or divide our tools, or create any kinds of walls or stovepipes, then we're really violating our commitment to integrated solutions. So we need our tools to provide an integrated data solution, to provide full life cycle traceability, and to interface with other tools all through the design process. The benefits that we achieve from GENESYS 4.0 are exactly those kinds of benefits. We have focused on achieving those, and we're very proud and excited that we think that GENESYS 4.0 does just that. It builds on the insights and proven capabilities from core and from the beginnings of GENESYS with a new open architecture that the GENESYS product line has brought to the fore. As always with our product releases, we are introducing new capabilities and innovations inspired by our engineering experience. Remember, we're systems engineers and creating tools for systems engineering, so we're learning from our own experiences. With its underlying data model, the critical information for systems engineering combined with a completely open technical architecture, GENESYS 4.0 connects the systems engineering to the greater project team and to the enterprise. GENESYS 4.0 offers a fully integrated systems engineering environment, combining the 4 systems engineering domains: requirements, behavior, physical architecture, and verification and validation. We can now connect to the greater project team to offer a truly integrated and collaborative work environment, which is one of the greatest benefits of an MBSE approach. So let's talk a little bit about connecting to the work environment. Effective systems engineering requires far more than systems engineers. It takes a team to engineer a system, a team of systems engineers, but a team that includes domain engineers and project managers, program managers, domain specialists, a team engaged with users and customers and stakeholders. With the following enhancements that we're going to talk about, we can now connect to the greater project team, not just with the other systems engineers who might be using our tool. The first way that we offer a connection is through the OSLC, the Open Services for Lifecycle Collaboration. It's an open community standard focusing on developing specifications and standards to connect application lifecycle management, product lifecycle management, IT operations, and much more. To help connect model-based systems engineering with the greater engineering and enterprise environment, GENESYS 4.0 now supports the OSLC data exchange. The OSLC connector provides the means to develop an interface and other applications to exchange engineering information with other tools across the project lifecycle. OSLC provides a framework by which organizations can define their own semantic mappings between any set of project information. Bethany has kindly agreed to demonstrate for you some of the other ways that we connect with the work environment and in ways that we have enhanced the GENESYS product through GENESYS 4.0. Bethany, take it away.
Thank you, Zane. In GENESYS 3.0, we brought you the Excel connector that allowed you to easily output data to Excel. No configuration or data exchange files required. It was wonderful. Now in GENESYS 4.0, we've greatly expanded that connector, allowing you to update data directly in GENESYS without ever leaving Excel. Of course, everything operates within the bounds of the permissions granted and controlled within the GENESYS project. Let's see this in action. Here we see Excel opened to a blank project. Notice this GENESYS tab. All of our connectors are going to add this into your Office products. I'll select that and quickly log into GENESYS. This is the standard GENESYS login that you'll see both on the integrated client and in our connectors. I now have access to all of the projects in my GENESYS repository. I'll quickly retrieve some information. We'll get our geospatial library, and I'm going to get the requirements. You see we've predefined this table for us. I'll just click load, and here we go. Now, as it's loading, you can see just how easy it is to get data. It's also easy to understand how you might use this in your day-to-day work. A table is a great interface for bulk editing and many other kinds of work. Now you might notice here that a few of my requirement types are set to nil. I'll just quickly demonstrate pushing some changes back into GENESYS. And I just click the Publish Changes button. It's going to push the data back in and confirm for me when it's done. Now, managers and team leads frequently need to have a visualization of a variety of database statistics. Dashboards in the Excel connector will help you do just that. I'll select my desired dashboard. In this case, we'll look at requirements again and click Load. There we go. Now I can see here that the project is quite old. Created in 2004, and it's recently had a lot of changes, as evidenced by both the orange and the blue spikes that represent data changes during the lifetime of the project. We have a lot of other information here available on our dashboards, and we have a variety of dashboards that we've already provided for you. As you can see, this bidirectional interface enables continuous data exchange and provides flexibility in communicating with all individuals on the project through the ubiquitous Excel program. The interface with PowerPoint is equally seamless. This allows me to get all diagrams of a specified type in a specified folder or package. It's incredibly fast and easy to get diagrams into PowerPoint, allowing me to invest my time in enhancing my communication efforts rather than fundamental data transfer. No longer do I have to export specific diagrams to prepare for design reviews and formal meetings or simply sharing a representation. Let's quickly log in again. Now I'll make a few selections, getting my project, the desired class, which in this case is functions, and you see we have a lot of diagrams available. I'll select activity and click insert. Now the connector is going to insert each diagram on its own slide. This will take just a minute to load. Now, as with all three connectors I'm going to show you today, anyone to whom you grant access can get data from GENESYS, even if they don't have GENESYS installed on their machine. Part of the beauty of the connectors we built into the Office suite. is not only do I not need to have Genesys installed on my desktop, I will also not consume a Genesys license when using these connectors. This is great for teams where many users need access, yet few need the robust, integrated environment of the Genesys Collaborative Edition client. Systems engineers and program managers are both focused on efficiently and effectively meeting customer needs. Unfortunately, sometimes collaboration and coordination between those focused on technical merit and those focused on budget and schedule becomes challenging. The project connector helps bridge that gap. I'll quickly log in one more time. Now I'll select my project and what type of data I'd like to load, and click the load button. Now the connector is loading my data. Note that this is a one-way connector at this time. I can make changes here in my project file. However, I cannot yet put those changes back into Genesys. Now, the project connector is particularly complex, as we built it with a set of rules to help set duration, start, and finish dates. More information about the rules in the project connector guide is available. It's available in the project connector guide. In fact, all three connectors have their own guide. You'll find them in the Start menu under the Genesys 4.0 program folder. As teams adopt model-based approaches, a commonly cited challenge is model management, including effective navigation, collaboration, access control, and reuse. First introduced in Core 9, cross-project relationships address these challenges, allowing users to create relationships between entities in different projects. This provides project teams and enterprise efforts nearly infinite flexibility to partition their models as they see fit. Using this feature is remarkably simple. First, I must have both projects open. You see here I have Geospatial Library on the left and our fast food system on the right. I simply start creating a relationship the way I normally would create any relationship. Now, I think the command center of our Geospatial Library needs a place to eat, so we're going to put our fast food restaurant in it. I will drag the fast food system component over into the Geospatial Library and drop it on the command center. Genesys prompts me with the appropriate relationships. I'll select one, and then I'm done. While drag drop is my favorite method, there are many more. Let's take a look at the common relationship dialog. Notice the projects drop down here at the bottom. This is going to exist on any relation dialog starting in Genesys 4. I simply need to select the project from the list, and then I have all of the entities in that project available to me, and I can quickly relate them. Let's add the fast food restaurant to the decomposition of the command center. Now, in almost every situation, the project team works with countless artifacts from others, which must be integrated into the engineering environment. Most often, these are various requirements documents, concepts of operations, specifications, required standards, etc. With the document parser introduced in Genesys 4.0, you can accelerate the parsing of documents, focusing your valuable time on the analysis of the material. We're now looking at a blank project, and I'll click the new document parser icon here on the Home tab of the ribbon. We'll start by loading the document. Now I'll create a folder to contain my results. We do recommend creating a folder for those results, as the parser will directly create the entities. There is no interim option here, so we like to put them in a folder, and we consider that a best practice. Next, I'll create a document entity to link these requirements to. Finally, keywords. Indicate a statement is a requirement. The commonly accepted set is will, shall, and must, and Genesys has pre-populated these for me. Finally, I click the Parse Document button. In just seconds, Genesys parses my documents and creates entities to represent its contents. It's finished. I'll close the parser, and we can see my results folder and all of my requirements. The parser is essential to organizations transitioning from a document-centric approach to a model-centric approach. Genesys interprets the document structure to create a hierarchy of entities. You can see that here both in the numbering scheme and if one were to look at the relationships among those entities. This allows me to quickly get my data in so that I can spend my time on thoughtful review and analysis of my requirements. Traditionally, navigation within Genesys has been document-centric. To access the entity of interest, you would start by drilling into a specific class and then down into folders until you found what you were looking for. This was great if you needed to see the contents of a folder or you had a good command of the MBSE language. It had some shortcomings, though, and Genesys 4.0 offers an alternative navigation approach to complement those previous approaches. You can now navigate by packages, a SysML concept that is fundamentally a tool for model management. So you'll see here in our Project Explorer, we have a packages branch. You can create these packages as you desire. You see we've created them by IPT, by level, but even by view. This free-form approach allows you to create any package you desire and place any entity in that package from any class you desire. You see here in this package, I have entities from components, functions, and items. Zane, that wraps it up. I'll hand it back over to you.
Great. Thanks, Bethany. And you can see from what Bethany has said that Genesys 4.0 provides additional capability to use in portraying what's in your database to the various constituencies that are involved in your model. In addition to the enhancements in the way Genesys functions, Genesys 4.0 offers an expanded menu of representations from which to choose how you portray your data to others. This too gives you more choices about how you connect with your constituents. You can advance the way you communicate your system design by leveraging additional systems engineering representations that are offered in Genesys 4.0. For example, we now have a class diagram available. The class diagram provides a structured view into software-intensive systems, bridging the gap between systems and software engineering. The constraint block diagram and parametric diagrams allow the engineer to identify and manage the system constraints, bridging from architecture into systems analysis. These two are now included in Genesys 4.0. The system's constraints specify assertions about valid system values in an operational system, and they provide insight to perform systems engineering analysis during the design phase of the life cycle. The parametric diagram expresses a set of constraints that determine the values that are valid in a system that is operating nominally. The depiction here of the network equations that constrain the properties of the subject block provides support for engineering analysis and can help identify the properties of the system that are critical to satisfying the requirements. The enhanced sequence diagram design provides capability as well. This diagram was available heretofore, but has been enhanced in terms of its usability in Genesis 4.0. Part of the magic of the Genesis sequence diagram is that it's automatically computed from the structure of the underlying model. That's an important point to keep in mind with any of these representations, that rather than creating the representation itself, the tool is creating the representation based on the data that's in the underlying database, in your model. So it's generated from the model. Rather than allowing you to accidentally misrepresent the sequencing and flows as they are constructed in the model, Genesis performs a static analysis of the behavioral model and computes the position of the activities on the lifelines based upon this analysis. While that's really valuable, this embedded intelligence was also a weakness in the sequence diagram as it was implemented before. The resulting layout was a little bit constrained and a bit awkward, and definitely non-traditional. That is, until Genesis 4.0. In Genesis 4.0, you get the best of both worlds. The fundamental sequencing is still computed, and you cannot position the nodes out of order. However, you have the greater flexibility within those computational boundaries to lay the diagram out in a way that better communicates the interactions within your system. So now activity nodes can be slid up and down their lifeline, bounded only by the adjacent nodes on the lifeline and by any constraining constructs. The item arrows can be repositioned either by grabbing and dragging the lines or grabbing the arrowhead. The net result is a diagram that both represents the engineering truth of your system design and visualizes in ways necessary to understand, analyze, and communicate. As I said about diagrams being generated from the database, the same is true of reports. Reports are simply pictures of what's going on, visualizations of what's going on in the database, and represent the data that resides there. So in Genesis, they are drawn from that data and constructed by the tool to be offered up as visualizations of your database. In Genesis 4.0, we have 6 new reports that are offered as a standard within the tool. We have first the system segment design description. This SSDD document defines the design of the system or the subsystem and its operational and support environments. We also offer the interface requirements specification, or IRS as it's known. This report outputs the requirements for all interfaces of a system or component for a list of interfaces. We offer a risk report, which outputs a color-coded matrix of risk severity with the number of risks in a cell, a table of risk by severity, and a listing of risks with all their details. This report is used in conjunction with the risk rating script. We offer a project compare report, which documents the differences between the current project and a user-selected base project. This allows you to compare independent work as well as clearly present all changes made to a system design since a previous baseline. The attribute version report documents the history of user-selected attributes in a tabular format for all of the entities of the database, the selected package, or the selected folder. And finally, the schema definition report outputs the definition of all classes in a user-selected facility. So you can see that we have a number of ways to output data from your database, directly from your model in Genesis 4.0 that enhances its ability to portray your design to the various constituencies in ways that they can appreciate and understand. Genesis 4.0 is all about enabling your team to do their work collaboratively and communicate it to their partners and constituents. Every addition and enhancement in Genesis 4.0 has been designed with this in mind. As I said at the very beginning, that's what has driven Genesis 4.0 from its very inception, is enabling the team to do its work more efficiently and effectively. And if you only take one thing away from what we've said today, that would be it. One way that we offer capability to do this is through the project visibility that's gained with the feature that we know as TeamView. TeamView allows the project teams to deliver a full hyperlinked representation of the design, and it's generated with push-button ease directly from the project repository. It's for use by a wide variety of stakeholders, customers, and partners. TeamView allows those focused on understanding the system design rather than focused on developing the system design to see the current state of the system in native HTML format. Whether at baseline points, on a regular schedule, or on demand, the Genesis team can leverage TeamView to generate a static HTML representation of the complete project, including all the text and graphics combined, for publication on a corporate internet or for distribution to customers and partners. All of the data, text and diagrams alike, is hyperlinked, enabling viewers to navigate the project design in the same way that they would navigate a website. The result is a highly efficient and effective communication in a format that's comfortable for all and is generated with ease. The Model Assistant is a very useful feature that's included with Genesis 4.0. Leveraging the insights gained over 20 years of practice, as well as the prototype implementation of this Model Assistant in core, the Genesis 4.0 Model Assistant moves beyond simple data capture into the realm of analytic assistance. It represents a step toward heuristics. The Model Assistant helps the engineer avoid certain classes of errors. For example, getting the allocation out of sync, while streamlining operations, once again freeing the engineer through the power and integration of a true model-based approach to focus on analysis and engineering rather than on bookkeeping consistency. The individual Model Assistant rules are enabled or disabled per user via the Model Assistant item in the Project Explorer tree. By default, all the options are enabled. These rules prompt you regarding the best practices for your design. You can see in the Model Assistant that's open in that picture, and you can't very well read this because it's too small, but I wanted you to see that there are a variety of rules, and implementing the rule or choosing to turn it off is simply a matter of checking and unchecking the box next to the rule itself. The example that's shown here helps you to drive to the end state of a single allocation of each function to a component. When turned on, it'll prompt you to make a deliberate choice if you attempt to allocate a function to more than one component. If you attempt to make a second allocation, Genesis 4.0's Model Assistant asks you to make a choice. And you can see from the box that's open here, which is the dialog box that you would see, it asks you to choose to add the second allocation to the allocation that already exists. For instance, if you know that you need to decompose that function further, and you know that you're going to have to divide the allocation later, but you want to keep it for some reason, you would choose that first box, or first choice there in the box. Secondly, it gives you the choice to replace the existing allocation with the new one. So if you're making a different allocation and you're allocating that function to a different component, it would allow you to choose to replace the allocation that you had before, or it might allow you to say, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Obviously, I don't want a duplicated allocation here, so you can cancel the new allocation that you were about to make. The point here is not so much the specificities of this particular rule, but to show you that the model assistant recognizes that you may be deviating from a best practice or a rule, if you will, for doing your design, and it simply brings that to your attention. It doesn't stop you from doing that. It doesn't give you a strange noise and not allow it to happen, but it offers you the choices that are before you and allows you to proceed intentionally as opposed to unintentionally doing something that you didn't necessarily intend to do. Finally, GENESYS 4.0 introduces the ability to track all the modifications of the project data at the entity level. Once you enable the audit logging, it maintains a textual log of all data changes, along with a timestamp and the responsible user. So you can see what change was made, who made it, and when they made it. These are stored in a read-only audit log attribute on the Properties tab of the Properties sheet for the entity. Combined with a highly detailed attribute versioning, audit logs provide insight into the evolution of the design. As with versioning, commands exist at the entity, category, package, and project levels to clear the audit logs. Clearing the log requires entity administrator privileges and creates a corresponding entry in the audit log history. While audit logging is less appropriate at the beginning of a project, as engineering data is still very much in flux, it's essential as the project matures and the controlled evolution becomes critical. Again, this is all based on intentionality, and you can pass out permissions as appropriate, but you're able to track or not track, but to choose to do either in a very intentional way, putting the control over what's going on into the hands of the designer. In other words, we're letting engineers be engineers. The tool will do the tracking, but the engineer makes the decision about whether or not to track. As you can probably tell by what Bethany has said and what I've said throughout the webinar, we're really excited about this, our newest product. Every feature in it has been designed with you in mind. As practicing systems engineers, we've sought to present you with a tool that will leverage and enhance your work without getting in your way. We think that GENESYS 4.0 does exactly that, and we hope you agree. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention and being with us today, and we look forward to interacting with you as you venture into the world of GENESYS 4.0. Thanks.
Thank you, Zane. It's time to move into Q&A, and we've already received some great questions. So thank you to everyone who has sent them in. If you have not yet sent your questions in, you can still submit them using the question tab on your webinar control panel. Let's start with a question from Adam. He says he's a core user, and he wants to know what he does to get GENESYS. Zane, if you're okay with that, I think I'll take that one.
I was going to say, I want you all to know that the voice you heard counter to mine is the voice on the other end of your support line, and you should make good friends with Bethany, because Bethany has the answers you need, and I'm going to encourage her to answer any of these questions that she can, and you all listen to her voice and get acquainted with it.
Thank you, Zane. I'm quite flattered. We have a great team of people who are responsible for the knowledge that crosses this desk. So let's start with Adam's question. He wants to know how he goes about getting GENESYS. I'm actually going to rewind a little bit and talk about different groups of folks and how each one of them would go about getting a GENESYS. If you have GENESYS 3, go to our website. Genesis 4 is live right now. Download it, send me an email, and we'll get you a new license. If you are a core user, call or email the support desk. We'd like to have a detailed conversation with you about your needs and to help you decide if Genesys will meet them. If it does, then we'll move forward, and if it doesn't, that's okay, but we want to have a detailed conversation with you. If you had core before and you're interested but you're not using core now, again, call the support desk and we'll help bring you into that loop. Everyone else, I realize we probably have some folks here on the line that are not currently Vitech customers, in which case you can call our support team or the support desk, and I'll forward you to the support team either way. We'd love to talk to you about it as well. So that actually leads me to another question. Where did it go? Oh, from Tristan. Tristan says he sees many features in Genesys 4.0 that were first released in Core 9. So he wants to know, does Genesys 4 now offer all of the features still in 9? And the answer to that is no. They are not an exact match. We spent a lot of time deciding what to put in Genesys 4. And we've made some very critical decisions that we think is going to really help it meet the needs for a lot of teams. But it's not an exact match, and we're not sure we'll ever really make it an exact match. And we think that's okay. We're going to keep developing on Genesys, and it's going to do more and more with each release and to meet more needs, and we're excited about that. So if you're not sure, does it have this or does it have that? Again, that's a great question for our support desk, and I'd love to talk to you in detail about that, Tristan. Our next question is from Robert, and he asks, what support for change management is offered? Now, Robert asked this before Zane did his slide on the audit log. So, Robert, I'm sure that helped a little bit. But there is another feature. This is not one that's new in Genesys 3. I'm sorry, Genesys 4. I think we actually did it in 2 or 3, but it's called versioning. And that allows you to watch the change on a specific attribute. And when you make a change, there's a new one entered, but the old one is kind of saved as an old result. And you can roll back to those previous results. So there are a couple features here to help you with change management. Going on, our next question is from Taylor, and Taylor asks, is SysML 1.4 supported? So we talk a lot about SysML around here. In fact, you've probably even seen some webinars where that's all that we talk about. It's really a hot topic. And our answer to that is we have built our SysML representations and support based upon the SysML book. And of course, the name of it escapes me now that I'm live, but it's the book by Friedenthal, Moore, and bless me, I can't remember the third name. And we've based it upon that. Some folks talk about SysML compliance, and SysML actually doesn't have true compliance. So the answer, Taylor, for is it fully supporting everything in the 1.4 spec, I'd have to get into detail on exactly what you're looking for. But if you're looking for where we're coming from on that, look at Sandy Friedenthal's book, call my desk, and we can get into the details with you. Okay, next question. Zane, just jump in here.
Well, the name of that book is A Practical Guide to SysML.
Bless you, Zane. Thank you. I can always count on you to quote a book. Okay, our next question is from Mark. And Mark asks, does the parser provide a document of remaining items in case some badly worded requirements are remaining that might need to be added by hand? And the answer is we meet that need, just not the way you were looking for it, okay? So I showed you in the document parser the keywords. Every sentence in your document will become an entity in Genesys. The ones that contain a keyword will be treated as a requirement. If they do not contain a keyword, we will name it debris, followed by a number, and put it in there. So that once you get everything in, then you can deal with it, decide what it is, and do that handwork you suggested. The next question is from Keith, and it's a fast, easy one. Thanks for sending me an easy one, Keith. He asked, are the model assistant rules per user or per project. The model assistant rules are per user. Okay, I see more questions coming in. I'm just kind of taking a look at what's come in.
The reason for them being per user is the model assistant is designed to directly support the user. So we want an individual user to be able to tailor the support they get, as opposed to trying to figure out what would best help the project. The model assistant is aimed directly at helping the individual user.
Thank you, Zane. We've had Matthew come in with an answer on the third author of that SysML book. It was Rick Steiner. So thank you, Matthew, for chiming in on that one. So Tristan asks if he can get a list comparing the two tools. And we don't have a list at this time. We'd like you to give our support desk a call, and I will sit down and talk with you in detail about the differences and, more importantly, your needs, to understand those and to see if it will meet your needs. Let's see what else. Can GENESYS interface with agile software development tools such as Jira? It helps to map system requirements to epics and stories. This question is from Christian. Christian, GENESYS, one of its big strengths, and one of the reasons that we're moving forward, and it really is the future, is its ability to connect to other tools. It has an open interface that you can develop connectors with. I don't know specifically the tool that you're asking about. That said, there is so much possibility. I'd love for you to call my support desk, or I can reach out to you after the webinar to get the details of that tool and to open a conversation about whether or not that can be done. Jason Baker asks if we already have a connector with Simulink. We're very familiar with Simulink. Can a connector be developed? I'm pretty sure it could. We don't have one yet. If you're interested in working on that with us, Jason, please do call me. We'd love to talk. Michelle Garn asks if you can run Core 9 and GENESYS 4 on the same server machine. The answer to that is yes, Michelle, you can. We want to make sure that that machine is robust enough to handle both. Okay, Zane, I do believe that just about wraps it up. There are a few questions we didn't get to. If I skipped your question, we will contact you directly to ensure that it gets answered. If you have any other questions or comments, please don't hesitate to send an email to support@vitechcorp.com. Alternatively, you can post your questions and comments on our Vitech LinkedIn group page. Just visit linkedin.com and search for Vitech Corporation. Thank you to everyone who attended today. As a reminder, the webinar was recorded. So if you would like to share the recording with colleagues, the video will be posted on our webinar archive. Just visit vitechcorp.com, click on Resources, and then Webinar Archive. Our next webinar, presented by myself, will be reviewing GENESYS from a core user's perspective. I'm sure Tristan will be interested in joining me on that one. And we'll have that on our calendar very soon. So keep an eye on the calendar or keep an eye on your inbox for an invitation if you're on our email list. At the conclusion of this webinar, a survey will open on your screen. Please take a moment to give us feedback on today's presentation or on what topics you'd like to see covered in future webinars. Thank you. Thank you for joining us and celebrating this release. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everybody, for taking the time to share what is a special day for Vitech, and we appreciate your being here with us today.